Awesome. Okay, so welcome. Off to a flying start here, but I really appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Philip. Thank you to Customer Focus for putting on this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. Our topic today is how to beat local competitors and price cutters. And if you've been in the industry for any length of time, it's likely you've come up against one or more of these people. And so that's really what we're going to be talking about today, is that there are specific things that we can do that will help in that regard, and we're going to talk about those and hopefully address a lot of the issues that might be on your mind in that regard. So I want to start with a simple fact of life, and that is that bad salespeople cut price. It's a common practice for people who don't sell well to simply cut price, because if they don't know how to sell well and they're not quite sure what to say or how to say it, they're not familiar with the consultative approach to selling, then the easiest thing for them to do is simply to cut price. Now, that's not to say that everyone who cuts price is a bad salesperson. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that for people who are not good salespeople, particularly those who have not been trained, who don't really know what they're doing, that one of the basic staples, it's essentially in their wheelhouse, is the cutting of price. So that's a lot of what bad salespeople do. So now if you're coming up against a bad salesperson who cuts price, it's not too difficult to overcome them, right? Because there are other aspects to the sale other than price, but just as a foundation for getting started, it is a fact of life that this is what bad salespeople do. Now, it's also a fact of life that some good people also cut their price. Now, good salespeople, and good, bad, who am I to say, right? But when we talk about people who are trained, well-educated, they know what they're doing, they're familiar with the industry, they're great at establishing relationships, they're good at consultative selling. Even in some situations like this, there are people like that, salespeople like that, who do end up cutting their price. But normally, it's not for the same reasons as the what I'm calling bad salespeople, the people who are not as well trained, who are not as focused on providing good results for the customer. They're just trying to sell product. So what are some of the reasons that what I'm calling a good salesperson would cut price? Well, it might be in order to get a new client. They feel like they have to cut price. It might be that they're in a bid situation, they want to participate in that, and they cut price. There are a number of different reasons. If you want to reward an established client and you do that through offering them a better price, we can do that. So there are a number of different reasons that lots of people in our industry would end up cutting price. So when I talk about in this title how to beat local competitors and price cutters, the people that I'm really referring to in that regard are not so much the really good, solid people in our industry who are doing a good job every day and who occasionally will reduce their price in order to make something better happen in their organization. I'm talking about sort of the lowballers, the price cutters, the people who really don't have a lot of other options. And so that's a lot of what we'll be talking about in today's presentation. Another fact of life is that price cutting, no matter who does it, can create a downward spiral and make it harder for value-based distributors to compete. So I'm going to assume the fact that you're on this webinar, the fact that you're investing your own time in your own education is probably a good indication that you are a value-based distributor, or you're working to be a value-based distributor, and you're not a typical price cutter who's just looking to get in there and sell at the lowest price. But this downward spiral has been happening in the industry for quite some time. Recent studies have indicated that gross profit margins in our industry have been reduced over the course of the past several years. So this is a trend that does seem to be continuing. And so when we have something like that going on, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about it? In other words, how are we going to compete with local distributors, including the low ballers and the price cutters? So with that question asked, and hopefully you have the ability to type in questions or comments on the right. If you do, what I'd like to do is to get your feedback on how you currently do it. What are some things that you currently do to compete with local distributors and or low ballers and price cutters? In other words, what are some things that you've been able to do in your own businesses to be able to do that? If you have the ability to type that in, just go ahead and do that. All right. I'm not seeing anything come through. Maybe you don't have a box on your screen. But anyway, I'll give you a few common answers. These are a few common reasons, that typical responses that people say that how they'll compete with local competitors. Typical responses include things like providing better service. Well, we're going to provide better service to them. We're going to be available more. We're going to be more out there. We're going to provide them with much better service, and for that reason, they're going to do business with us over our competitors. Or we're going to provide them with better ideas or a better product selection or a better combination of the two. Better ideas and better product selection leading to better results for them. Or some people will say, we provide a more personal approach, and as a result of that, they're going to be a lot more likely to do business with me. Some people say it's simply a matter of better relationships. We're better at establishing relationships. We're better at being able to create the kind of relationships that people are interested in, and it's going to keep them loyal. So these are some of the typical ways that people will compete with local distributors and price cutters. Chances are you may find yourself falling into one of those 4 areas. Or maybe you have some better ideas and better responses. And the better responses are, in addition to these, going to be what's necessary, because the next question we have to ask ourselves is that enough? In other words, is providing better service, providing better ideas, providing better selection, a more personal approach, better relationships, is that enough? And in some cases, the answer will be yes, and in some cases, the answer will be no. And so what I'd like to do next is I'd like to walk you through a scenario that will allow you to see sort of demonstrably what people are doing and how they're doing it, and what impact that has on prospects and clients. And this is what I've defined as the 5 levels of promotional product sales. And if you're familiar with some of my material, if you've heard of these levels, if you have some idea of what they are, then what I'm going to do in this particular presentation is give you a much clearer idea of sort of what happens at each of these levels and how we can use the various levels to improve our performance and to beat local competitors, price cutters, and pretty much anyone else that we come up against. All right, so when we look at the universe of promotional products, distributors, and salespeople, what you'll find is that essentially everyone in the industry is divided out into some of these 5 categories. Not one of these 5, but some of these 5. People often inhabit more than one. And what we're talking about here are essentially the different functions that we can provide as a promotional products distributor or salesperson. And at the base of the pyramid is the function of order taker. This is the type of person who, if you go to an order taker and you say, I'd like to order 144 white heavyweight 100% cotton t-shirts with a 2-color imprint, they can take the order for you. And they provide you with a logo, they can take the order. And the order taker in our industry is the basic point of entry. In other words, you can't do anything in our industry until and unless you're able to at least take an order. And in our industry, there are people who pretty much stop at this level. All they're able to do is take orders, but the problem with simply being an order taker is that it is entirely reactive. In other words, if all we can do is take orders, we are then dependent upon prospects and clients finding us, coming to us, deciding what it is that they want to buy, and then placing their orders with us. And while that can and does happen, it usually doesn't happen often enough to create a sustainable business. So simply being an order taker is very likely not going to be enough to get what you're looking for in the industry. Second level above the order taker is that of the product peddler or product seller. This is the person who focuses on the selling of product. The mantra of a typical product seller or product peddler is something along the lines of, if you can think it, I can ink it, right? So this is the person that will go to a potential client and say, I provide promotional items. I can get you any of over 700,000 promotional items, and I can screen print them, I can pad print them, I can embroider them, I can emboss it, I can deboss it. Whatever you need, I can get for you. That is the function of the product seller. Okay, and if that product seller also has the capability of taking an order, providing this basic level, the function of the order taker, then that person can actually make a little bit of money in our industry. Now, when I talk about these functions and the fact that they're at the bottom of the pyramid, this is not to diminish or take anything away from these functions at all. These functions are very important. The function of the order taker, particularly in our industry, in the promotional products industry, it's no small feat, right? Because every single order in our industry is essentially the exception rather than the rule. Every single order that is placed is a custom order. So we have to order a specific product in a specific color, in a specific size in some cases, and it has to be decorated in a particular manner with a certain number of colors, perhaps tight registration, perhaps Pantone color matches. So there is a lot to be said for simply taking an order correctly. So if somebody is able to recommend product, find a product, recommend a product, and then take an order for that product, then that person can function fairly well in the industry. But they're not going to be able to function nearly as well as those who have also mastered the other 3 levels of promotional product sales, and you'll see why in just a moment. So the next level up above that of the product peddler or the product seller is that of the relationship marketer or the relationship seller. This is the type of person who is really good at establishing relationships. These are people that are often referred to as people persons, or so-and-so is a people person. Those types of people are very often the best relationship marketers or relationship sellers. And so they're great at going out, kicking down doors, introducing themselves, getting people to feel good about them, and then, assuming they are also able to recommend the appropriate products and take orders effectively, relationship marketers can actually make a decent living in the promotional products industry. So obviously, if you're a great relationship marketer, if you're great at establishing relationships, but you're not good at recommending product and you're not good at taking orders, all you will succeed in doing here is schmoozing. You'll succeed in making some friends perhaps, but you're not going to make any money. So if you want to be able to make both friends and money, then it means combining these skills, being a relationship marketer, a relationship seller, a product seller, and an order taker. When you combine these 3 things, you can do pretty well in this industry. But there is also a ceiling to this. And the reason there's a ceiling to this is that even if you're able to establish relationships, if you're able to recommend the appropriate product, and if you're able to take orders, what it doesn't take into consideration is that the majority of people in the market today may not even know they need promotional items, right? It might not even be on their radar. So some of the very best prospects and potential clients that you could ever run into might not yet know that they need promotional items. So if you go to somebody like that and you say, hey, I sell promotional items and I can, essentially taking this product seller approach, I can put your logo on anything and I can create a lot of awareness for you. What can I sell to you today? That's going nowhere, because until and unless your prospect and client or potential client recognizes that they have a need, it's simply not going to happen. So that brings us to the next level, which is that of the consultative seller. Okay, now the advantage, and you know what, let's boil it down, because there are some people who have been in the industry for a while who talk about consultative selling and perhaps still don't have it mastered. There are also some people who are maybe relatively new to the industry who hear about consultative selling and think it sounds kind of daunting, or can I really do this, and they might not know. So to boil it down to its simplest components, when we talk about consultative selling, really what we're talking about in that situation is being able to connect the dots between what it is that a customer actually wants, what their desired outcome is, connecting the dots between that and between the products that we sell. So for example, if I have a customer who owns a retail store and wants to bring in more business, then the way that I would consult with that person is I would say, okay, what sort of promotion can I put together that would allow this person to get more business into his or her store, right? And if I can create a promotional campaign that is designed to get more people into that person's store, now I've connected the dots between what they want, more people in the store, and what we sell, promotional items. That is the function of a consultative seller. As a result of this, the consultative seller is able to sell to people who otherwise would not buy promotional items because they simply didn't know how it could help or what it would do for them. And until a promotional distributor is able to do that, to connect the dots between what it is that the prospect really wants and what it is that we sell, he or she will never make as much money as they can possibly make in our industry. So for most of our clients, It's a question of simply finding out, what do they really want? What are they looking to accomplish? What do they want to have happen in their business, in their lives, that we can potentially provide a promotional solution in order to achieve? So again, if it's a retail store and they just want to get people in, that's relatively simple. We can recommend a promotional campaign designed to reward the people who come into the store. So they would go out with some sort of promotion and say, anyone who stops by our store during the month of July will receive this free promotional gift. And that by itself could help bring people into the store. There are other people, if you're talking to human resources personnel, for example, their goal may be to attract and retain a certain caliber of employee. In that situation, our job is to connect the dots and say, okay, what is the campaign that I can recommend that will help that human resources person to attract and retain the right people? If I'm dealing with an admissions officer in a university, and that person's goal is to bring in the highest quality students, okay, what sort of promotional campaign can I recommend that will allow them to attract the type of students that they want to be able to attract to their university? Every prospect we ever run into has some sort of need that we have to identify that we can then satisfy with what we sell. Because if they don't have a need, they are not a prospect, okay? If they have absolutely nothing that they want to accomplish, if they don't want to attract customers, if they don't want to retain employees, if they don't want to increase their sales, if they don't want to motivate their sales team, if they don't want to have their logo on stuff, which is the product seller, if they don't want any of that stuff, they're not prospects for us. They're not going to buy. The people who are people who want something. They want to create some sort of result in the market, and it's up to us to help them to create that result. And that's connecting the dots. That's the consultative selling approach. So you can look at this and clearly see that someone who is able to consult with a client, connect the dots between what it is they want and what it is that we sell, someone who's able to establish relationships, recommend the appropriate products and solutions, and take the orders is going to make way more money than anyone who is only operating at some of the lower levels. And for the longest time in our industry, consultative selling was really viewed as the top of the pyramid. People looked at it and said, okay, if you really want to be as successful as possible in our industry, this is where you need to be. You need to function in the realm of the consultant. But if you've ever been in a situation where you've been in front of a client and you've laid out all your best ideas and all your best strategies, and you've recommended exactly the appropriate product that would make perfect sense for them, and they didn't buy it, now what happened is you weren't involved in consultative selling, you were involved in free consulting. Big difference. Big difference between free consulting and consultative selling. So what we realize is that consulting is not the goal. The goal is not simply to go in and razzle-dazzle people with your ability to come up with great ideas, unless they're actually good prospects who are going to eventually become customers. Because this is where the real money is in our industry. The top of the pyramid, where all the money starts, is the person who functions as a customer acquisition and retention specialist, okay? If your focus in your business is to get and keep customers through consulting with clients, establishing relationships, recommending the appropriate products, and taking orders, now you've got the whole situation set up. Now you're in a situation where you can create the types of results that's going to win you a loyal, rabid customer base. And that's really what you're looking for. So the top of the pyramid is the customer acquisition and retention specialist, the person who goes to work each day, the distributor or distributor salesperson who goes to work each day and performs each function with the specific goal of getting and keeping customers. And here's what I mean by that. If you are a sole proprietor, you own the business, you do the selling, you do the billing, you do everything. If you think of your job in terms of simply selling, you're not going to be doing everything that you can do to earn the money you need to make. Whenever you're performing any function in your business, whether it's sending out a bill, whether it's establishing contact with a new prospect, you want to engage in that activity for the primary purpose of getting and keeping customers. So here's what I mean. let's say in addition to all your other responsibilities, you have to send out the bills, you have to do the billing for your organization. In that situation, let's say you send out a bill and you haven't gotten paid yet. If you were calling somebody with the goal of simply getting paid, you might pick up the phone, call them on the phone and say, hey, we sent you the product, where's our money, right? That would be a typical collections kind of call if your goal was simply to get the money. But if your goal is to acquire and retain customers, then that call might sound a little different. You might contact the person and say, hey, just want to make sure that all the material arrived. Did you get everything okay? Did everything look good? Was the imprint good? Were you able to give it out to your prospects? What was the reaction you got? And then, so that's great. I'm glad it arrived. Glad everything's good. Tell me, I noticed we haven't received payment on that. When could we expect to see a check, right? Essentially saying the same thing. You're essentially saying, where's my money? But you're doing it in a much different way. You're doing it with more of a view to getting and keeping customers. So in a situation like that, if you do that, you're going to be a lot more likely to do exactly that, to get them and to retain them. One of the things that I've always viewed as customer building, I look at it almost like building a brick wall. If you think of your first year in business and you equate it to building a brick wall, your first year is getting that first layer of bricks down on the ground, right? So you get your first customer in, that's your first brick. You get your second customer, that's your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth. So at the end of your first year, you've now laid a foundation of bricks that forms your customer base. Now, if you're able to keep those people, if you're able to retain those customers, and then you begin your second year, you can start layering more customers on top of those. However, if at the end of your first year, you haven't been able to retain your customer base, let's say half of them are gone, well, now you're going to spend the first half of your second year simply plugging the holes in your first year customer acquisition in order to get to the point where you can then build, all right? So doing everything with a focus on customer acquisition and retention is what makes the difference between simple order takers and product sellers and those who are able to earn a lot more money. So if we look at the performance level, typical performance level, and then the outperformance level, because this is about, how do I outperform my competitors? What you'll notice is that a lot of people in our industry function at these lower levels. Product seller, order taker, in some cases, relationship marketer, right? But when you're able to really focus your attention on this top of the pyramid, customer acquisition and retention, focusing on consulting with the client, marketing and relationship marketing, relationship selling, and then selling products and taking orders, it's a lot easier for you to outperform them than in other situations. And when you're going up against somebody who operates at the lower levels, the easiest way to outperform them is to simply look at where your focus is now. Ask yourself this question: where am I spending most of my time now? Is it focused on just recommending products? Is it focused on establishing relationships? Is it focused on consulting? Or is it focused primarily on the getting and the keeping of customers? All right. So important questions to ask yourself. And if you were to look at where you're functioning now versus where you need to be functioning in order to grow your sales and profits, it will become pretty clear what you need to do. All right. So if you want to outperform your competitors, look at these 5 levels, ask yourself where you're performing, and then focus in on the areas where you're going to be able to get a better result. Okay. Now, when we talk about the getting of customers, one of the keys to fast customer acquisition is effective qualification, making sure that the people that we're talking with are actually qualified to buy from us. Now, particularly in the early stages of our business, sometimes what we do is we're not even sure if we're qualified to sell to somebody. And in those situations, we can potentially be shooting ourselves in the foot because we'll spend time in front of a prospect trying to convince or persuade them that we are worthy of doing business with. When in fact, what we need to do is we need to go into every prospecting situation with the idea of qualifying that person to determine whether or not they are qualified to do business with us. Okay, it's totally turning the tables on the typical approach of trying to convince or persuade somebody that we're the right choice and they should really go with us and we're really good and buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, because that approach just doesn't resonate with people. 99 times out of 100 people hear that and it just sounds too desperate. So if you go into a situation qualifying the person to find out, do they have a need, do they have a desire, do they have a budget, do they have the willingness to pay, do they have a track record of perhaps buying some sort of advertising or promotion in the past, those are the things you want to know, because if the answer to those questions is yes, you've got somebody who is very likely to be highly qualified to buy from you, and at that point you can proceed. One of the worst mistakes we can make is trying to schedule an appointment or meet face-to-face with somebody who isn't qualified to buy from us to begin with. So ask yourself this question: what is your current qualification procedure? How do you currently qualify prospects to determine whether or not they are authorized or qualified to be able to do business with you? Do you have such a process? And if so, what is it? So in thinking about your qualification process, there are four primary things you want to ask yourself. First of all is it consistent? In other words, if I'm meeting a new prospect and I'm trying to determine whether or not this person is qualified to do business with me, is what I'm saying consistent from prospect to prospect to prospect? And the reason this is important is that if I qualify 10 different people and I do it 10 different ways, the outcomes are all going to be different. But if I qualify 10 different people in exactly the same way, then I'm going to learn what's working and what's not. I'm going to be able to focus in more on the most effective way to qualify them, on getting the right answers, and as a result, my entire approach will be better. Consistency in business is vital. It's just a key component. And anyone who has ever been to a McDonald's restaurant knows that this is true. We don't go to McDonald's because the food is so delicious. The reason that people go to McDonald's is because they know exactly what they're getting every single time. So if I'm traveling somewhere and I'm in a town that I'm not familiar with and I don't know where to eat, if I see the Golden Arches, I may think, okay, this may not be a great idea, but at least I know what I'm getting. So consistency of approach is really important in our businesses, and it's very important in our qualification procedures, making sure that we're doing it consistently from prospect to prospect to prospect. Is my qualification procedure documented? In other words, do I have written down somewhere or in a computer file somewhere or on a clipboard somewhere a series of questions that I'm going to ask a new prospect to determine whether or not they're qualified to do business with me? Questions like, what sort of events do you have coming up within the next 90 days? Where do you need to see some quick improvement in your business? What sort of promotions have you done in the past? What are you looking to accomplish in your business or your division, depending on who you're talking to? Those types of questions are going to get them to open up and reveal to you whether or not they have an opportunity to spend money with you. Now, the other thing that you'll notice about those questions is that they are all open-ended questions. They are not yes or no questions, because the worst thing we can do is ask somebody a series of yes or no questions and get a bunch of no answers. Do you do promotions? No. Would you like to do promotions? No. Okay, thanks. I'm out of here. Whoop, whoop. There's my car warming up in the parking lot, right? You want to make sure you're asking open-ended questions. The other advantage to open-ended questions is that the way that human brain works is that if we're asked a yes or no, it's very easy for the brain to simply respond to one of those two things. But when we're asked an open-ended question, what the human brain does, it does something called a transderivational search. And that's just a long, convoluted psychiatric term, which basically says that when we're asked an open-ended question, our brain is going to sort of look around for different answers. Within its limits there, it's going to look at the different options, and it's going to take a few moments to process that. And as a result, you're going to get better answers. So when you ask open-ended questions and you document them and you make it a consistent part of your qualification procedure, you're going to end up with a much better process that gives you much better results. Next thing you want to ask is it need-based? Is your qualification procedure, your qualification process need-based? Is it based on what they actually want to accomplish? If you simply ask people, are you interested in promotional products? Do you want to buy promotional products? Can I sell you promotional products? All those questions they're need-based from your standpoint because you need to sell some product, but they are not need-based from the customer's standpoint. You want to think in terms of what they really need. What is the result that they want to create, and how can I implement and incorporate questions like that into my procedure. So if I'm talking to a marketing director, some of the things they might need might be to create awareness in the marketplace, create market share, attract a particular segment of the market to raise their hands to express interest so that they can put their salespeople in touch. So by asking questions that are about what they actually need, you're going to increase the percentage of people who give you yes answers, and you're going to increase the likelihood that you're going to be able to sell something to them. Beyond need-based, we also want to know, most importantly perhaps, is it effective? Is my qualification process effective? Well, what makes a qualification process effective? The thing that makes it effective is whether or not it qualifies the right people in and qualifies the wrong people out. In the early stages of my promotional products business, I spent way too much time trying to convince or persuade unqualified prospects to buy from me. In hindsight, that was the most colossal waste of time you could ever imagine. And to some extent, we're probably all guilty of that. Hopefully, you're a lot less guilty of that than I was in the early stages. But when we're prospecting, our goal is not to try to convince or persuade unqualified prospects to buy from us. Because if we're successful at convincing or persuading unqualified prospects to buy from us, what's the likelihood we're going to get paid, right? If they're not qualified, if they don't have the need, the desire, the money, or the budget, and we manage somehow to sell them, what's the likelihood we're going to get paid? So the effectiveness of your qualification procedure is all about, does it do the job? Does it help you to determine who is qualified to do business with you and who is not qualified to do business with you? In my Top Secrets of Customer Acquisition program, one of the things that we've identified is the fact that there are literally only 5 areas in which a prospect will fall in terms of qualification. Literally only 5. When you're aware of these 5 areas, you know exactly what to do to follow up. Every single prospect you ever come into contact with, and I don't have it on a slide, this is sort of bonus material, but every single prospect you ever come into contact with will fall into one of 5 categories. Either they are ready to buy now, right? That's usually the smallest group. Second group is those who have specific dates in mind. I'm not ready to buy, but I do have an event coming up in early October. Give me a call beginning of August so we can discuss it. So those are the people who have specific dates in mind. Third group is those who are generally receptive. They're not ready to buy now. They don't have specific dates in mind, but they're open to it. Yeah, you know, I was thinking about doing some promotions, not quite sure when, but yeah, let's stay in touch because I'd like to pursue that. Those are the people who are generally receptive. Those are the 3 primary categories that when we're prospecting, these are the people we're looking for, ready to buy, specific dates, and generally receptive. Beyond that, there are 2 other categories. The next category is those who are disqualified, no need, no desire, no money, no budget. And if you identify somebody who has none of those things, if you can't get a referral from that person to somebody who is qualified, then at that point, that person is disqualified out and you're done, and your qualification procedure has done its job. Eliminating poor quality prospects is as important a function of your qualification procedure as qualifying good people in. Getting rid of bad quality prospects saves you enormous amounts of time. And then the 5th group are those who are unresponsive. So I've approached them, I've followed up with them time after time, and I haven't heard anything back. Every single prospect you ever come into contact with will fall into one of those 5 categories. Ready now, specific dates, generally receptive, disqualified, or unresponsive. Once you know that, you know exactly how to follow up with each one. If they're ready to buy now, you make product recommendations and you sell to them. If they have specific dates in mind when they'd like to buy, you put a note in your tickler or on your calendar to contact them at the appropriate time, talk to them about the appropriate promotion, recommend the appropriate product, and sell it to them. If they're generally receptive, you get them scheduled out in some sort of drip campaign so that you're in touch with them again and again and again until they are either ready to buy or have specific dates in mind, at which point you follow up accordingly. If they're disqualified, you try to get a referral from them. If that doesn't work, you scratch them off your list, they're done. And if they're unresponsive, you determine your tolerance for pain. How many calls will I make? How long will I stay in touch? And if you're doing this well, if you're qualifying well, and you're getting a lot of people in those first 3 areas, ready to buy, specific dates, or generally receptive, what you'll find is that you don't care as much about the unresponsives because they're not responding. Once you've done that, once you have a qualification procedure that allows you to identify where everyone is in your process, you are now wasting far less time than you ever were before, which is the reason that a qualification procedure is so important and will allow you to really beat your competitors, because many of your competitors will not do this, and as a result, they will be wasting enormous amounts of time on people who are not qualified. If you didn't know about those different levels of qualification coming into this call, that by itself is going to allow you to better focus your attention on the people who are going to allow you to make money. Most people don't look at it like that. They just look at it like, I'm out there, I'm talking to people, and eventually something should close and someone will sell. When you shift that mindset from just talking to people, networking, interacting, and trying to sell stuff to qualification, segmentation, and then focusing on doing the right thing with the right people at the right time, all of a sudden the value of your time goes up dramatically compared to your competitors who are not doing that. So in my opinion, competing with typical distributors, people who don't function at that level, is actually kind of easy. The barrier to entry into our industry has been dropping for years. Now, for those of you who know who I am and know what I do, my whole goal has been to lift the bar for the market, to educate the people who are coming in and the people who are already here, to try to create an environment in which promotional products distributors are seen as valued assets, not just product schleppers, right? And so when you're competing with an untrained, unskilled distributor, it's kind of easy to beat that person. But what's harder to beat? You know, if you think about it, when you're going into a selling situation, what are the situations that you dread? And I've identified 3 primary situations that typically people don't like. How does it feel when you're in a situation where you're competing with someone who is better trained than you are? Somebody who perhaps has better product knowledge, better industry knowledge, better knowledge of the customer, better knowledge of the customer's needs, a better ability to engage in consultative selling, establish relationships, recommend the right products, and take those orders. When you're up against somebody who is better at that, that's when it's tough. And I remember distinctly, you know, in the early days of my distributorship, when I would go out there and sell, if I was up against a competitor who perhaps had been in the industry longer than I was and just knew stuff better, I knew that that was going to be tougher. Now, the reason that I talk about better trained rather than more experience is that experience doesn't always get it done. In other words, there are some people who have been in the industry for years and years and years and years and years, but they never took the time to learn how to do it right up front. And so rather than having 10 years of experience, 20 years of experience, they essentially have 1 year of experience repeated over 10 times or 15 times or 20 times. They just managed to have the same experiences, but it didn't really get them to a point where they're going to be able to be dramatically successful. So when you're up against somebody who is better trained, that's usually a red flag. So one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that we're up to speed on how to do the things that we're talking about in this webinar, how to function at all 5 levels, leading with the fact that above all, we need to be a customer acquisition and retention specialist, focused on being able to consult with clients, establish relationships, sell the right product, and take the orders. When you're able to do that, it's a lot easier to compete because at that point you've got the training you need to be more competitive. Second group, how does it feel to compete with people who are better connected than you are? If you're up against people who have more connections, if you've ever been in a selling situation where you've gone in and you've talked to somebody and they say, oh, we already have somebody that we're dealing with, and you find that that person, you're running into that person more and more often. If you're in a promotional products market and you go from prospect to prospect and you constantly keep hearing the same name, what that tells you is that person at the moment is better connected than you are. So in order to get as connected or better connected than that particular competitor of yours, you really need to go back to the whole prospecting thing and the training thing, because if you are trained appropriately on how you're going to bring new customers through the door, then that's going to lead to the connections that you need in order to better compete. So competing with those who are better trained is difficult. Competing with those who are better connected is difficult. And of course, competing with those who get better pricing is always difficult. So how does that feel when you compete with people who get better pricing? And that sort of brings us back to what we were talking about at the beginning. You know, when you're up against a low baller who's simply cutting price, that's just annoying. You know, it's frustrating. But what it forces us to do is it forces us to evaluate the prospect that we're dealing with. Because if the prospect that I'm talking to is solely focused on getting the lowest price and doesn't care about getting a better promotion, getting a better result, having the results that they want actually happen as opposed to just buying cheap product, then it's possible that person is not a good quality prospect for me. Now, if I'm a lowballer price cutter, that person is an ideal prospect for me, but that's how it works. Not everybody shops at Walmart all the time. Right? There are some people who go to high-end department stores. In any market, you can find people who will always buy the cheapest thing, right? Whenever they're traveling, they will always stay at Motel 6, right? And they will always drive the cheapest car, and they will always wear the cheapest clothes, and they're just cheap. In every market, you have those people. I personally do not call those people prospects. Those aren't the kind of people that I'm interested in attracting. If that's your segment, go for it, but in my experience in our industry, there is always someone, no matter how desperate you are to make a sale, there's always someone who's going to be more desperate than you are. And the rush to zero margin is not a race I want to win. So in those situations, you want to make sure that you've got more than just pricing to fall back on. But those are the three big areas that make it difficult: training, connectedness, and pricing. And that's what brings us to the three critical factors you need to succeed. When you look at it, if you want to be able to be competitive, you need three primary things. You need EQP buying power so that you are able to offer competitive pricing when you need to and not completely take it out of your profit margins. You need quality connections. You need to be in touch not just with the best prospects in your market, you need to be in touch with the best suppliers who are going to be able to get you the best deals and get you stuff when you need it. You need to be connected with them. And the third thing is cutting-edge training. When you combine these things, if you've got the cutting-edge training and you've got the connections with people and you've got the EQP buying power, now when you're coming up, it's harder to come up against somebody who's better trained. It's harder to come up against somebody who has more connections, and it's harder to come up against somebody who's going to be able to undercut you on price. So when you've got these three critical factors working together, that's when you're in a position to win. Now, at the intersection of these three circles is really the sweet spot, right? Because if you've got low price, right? If you've got the ability to buy stuff cheap, but you don't have a lot of connections, well, you're not going to sell anything anyway. And if you have no cutting-edge training, then, well, without the connections, it kind of doesn't matter. But if you've got cheap pricing and you have connections, without training, all that's going to result in is price cutting, right? If I've got a lot of connections and I've got ability to sell at a low price and I have no idea how to do anything else, it leads to price cutting, which means you're never going to make as much as you can possibly make. If you've got a bunch of great connections and you've got training, then you'll be able to do pretty well even without buying power. There are a lot of people in our industry who do really well simply because they're trained well, they've got good connections, and they're able to sell effectively. But if you add EQP buying power into that, now at that point, you're practically unstoppable. Similarly, if you've got cutting-edge training in EQP buying power, that's all great, but if you don't have the connections, you're not going to make the money. So when you put these three critical factors together, what you find now is a recipe for success. If one of them is missing, you're never going to be as successful as you could possibly be. So if you'd like more details on any of that, you're welcome to visit our website, smarteqp.com. And the way that came about is that about 7 years ago, a couple of members of our mastermind group, our Top Secrets of Promotional Product Sales mastermind group, had discussed the idea of putting together some sort of buying group. And it was mastermind group member Jamie Coggeshall who really led the charge on that, and he formed an organization called AIM, the Advertising Industry Mastermind Group, which was based on our mastermind group and getting them preferential pricing. And over the course of 7 years, it's gone on to become really the leading organization of its kind in the industry. And as a result, the people get preferential pricing. But in addition to that, we've also added the cutting edge training that we offer from top secrets of promotional product sales, and the connections that we've established through our various groups. We've got all types of groups, people in the industry who are connected, exchanging ideas on a daily basis. So if you'd like more details on that, you can visit our website at smarteqp.com. And at this point, I have a slide here for questions, but I'm not quite sure if you're able to ask questions. If the moderator is able to chime in here. Philip, you there?
Yeah, David, you can, the individuals who are listening can go ahead and ask questions. There's a box on the very bottom they actually have
Okay.
access to. So, yeah, anybody with any questions out there, we could go ahead and give a few minutes here. And if you have any, go ahead and type them in and we'll get to them. I could read them out for David if you can't see them on your end, David.
Yeah, I don't see anything here. So
Yeah, no problem.
wrong
Let's
spot.
give it a few minutes here. And if we see any come through, I could go ahead and read them out to you for you to answer them. If not, everyone,
Okay.
thanks so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and send out the slides and the recording for everyone to go ahead and review with all David's
Okay.
contact information and so on. We just had one question come through, David, for you by MB Haney. What is EQP? So if you want to...
Okay. Okay, great question. Yeah, EQP stands for end quantity pricing. So in the promotional products industry, you're familiar with the various columns of pricing. Normally the way that it works is the lowest quantities are on the left, so you might get 100 of something for $10, and then 250, it might be $9.75, and then at 500 it goes down to $9.50, that type of thing. And the end quantity is the last column on the right, and typically that's the lowest price that's available. So EQP stands for end quantity pricing, and what that means is that you get the benefit of the end quantity pricing regardless of the quantity. So if you have a customer that comes along and wants to buy 144 of something, and that's the first column pricing, you would be able to, as a promotional products distributor, you'd be able to buy it at the end quantity pricing, and you could then either still charge them the full catalog pricing, or you could pass along some of the savings depending upon what you wanted to do there. So yeah, for people who are relatively, I should have explained that. For people who are new to the industry, they might not understand that acronym. Most people who have been in the industry for a while would probably understand that. But
Nope.
okay, so if there are any other questions, you're welcome to type them in. Okay. We've got nothing else?
Hey, David, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have another one here by Kim Brown. It says online
Okay.
stores are notorious price cutters. How do you address them?
Okay. Well, when you talk about that, I mean, essentially what you're looking at, if you think about, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I'm trying to go back to the slide that I wanted to show you. If you,
I could always address a little bit of
okay.
that too as well. Obviously.
Yeah, well, certainly talk. Let me hit this, and then I'd like you to chime in on that, because
Sure.
what we're talking about is a couple things. When you talk about websites, there are websites that are used appropriately as tools in our industry, and I think that's what Philip will talk to you about in a moment. And websites that are used appropriately as tools in the industry allow you to do the consultative sale better. Okay, if you're talking about, however, some place that people just go where it's a website that's like a vending machine, where people have to know what they want, and they have to know what quantity, and they have to know what colors, and they have to have their logo ready, and they input that, and they put it on a credit card and they bill it, essentially what you're talking about in that situation are these two lower levels. You're talking about a product sale and an order taking situation. Right? So you're not really talking about a relationship being established too much. You're not talking about much consulting going on. And from a customer acquisition and retention standpoint, you're not necessarily looking at a lot there either. But ideally, for those people in our industry who have a really good functional website that represents them, represents their business, and allows them to function as more of a consultant, it can be a huge advantage. Okay, Philip, yeah, go ahead. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I would say another thing is that always competing in your locality, and a lot of individuals out there want to compete against each other on price, and I think David's done a great job of showing how you can differentiate yourself. But as far as how to compete with websites that are price cutters, so to speak, I would say nothing beats good service, and I think that's how you increase customer loyalty and satisfaction. So even if you're getting a customer who says, well, 4imprint has it for this price, or Discount Mugs has it for this price, and so on. I think you'll find that if you have better customer service and things are more personalized on your end, and you can differentiate yourself by, let's say, being more responsive or giving a personal touch or shipping more quickly and so on, it's not all about price, and that's not true for everybody. But obviously at Customer Focus, we create web stores for promotional product distributors, and a lot of them come to me and say, well, how do I compete against Discount Mugs and 4imprint? And my advice to them is learn how to differentiate yourself by personalizing the experience. And many other companies out there want to, encourage and help small businesses out there. So I, for one, wouldn't go to, a major website out there like the some I've mentioned, because I'm looking to contribute to the smaller and more local businesses around me who
Yeah.
need more help. So I think it's just a matter of differentiating yourself, finding that unique selling point, and going from there. One more question here, David. We had a few, and I encourage everybody to go ahead and reach out to David with these questions personally. David, what's the best email for everyone to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get me at, let's see, what would be the best one to use? Okay, you're going to need a pen. It's kind of long, but this would be the best email to reach me at. It's secrets, SECRETS, okay, because our brand is Top Secrets of Promotional Product Sales. So it's secrets at topsecretswebsite.com. Okay, really convoluted, I know, but
Yeah, no
so
problem.
it's
I'm writing it
secrets
down in
at,
the chat box as well, David, for everyone to see, so they'll all see it.
oh, okay, awesome, great. And just getting back to that other point, when you're looking to differentiate yourself against those websites, if you function on these levels, it's no longer a question of how do I compete with these websites. It's really a question of how can they possibly compete with me? Because how is an organization like that going to be able to provide the level of service? When Philip was talking about service, how are they going to be able to establish the relationships, consult with the client, focus on the acquisition and the retention of customers if they're all totally bottom line focused? It becomes very difficult.
And David, one more thing here. We have a few people that are asking links to training and where can we find more about training and so on. So would you just encourage these individuals to go ahead and reach out to your email?
Yeah, or they can actually go to that website. It's topsecretswebsite.com. Again, it's kind of convoluted, but it's TOPSECRETS website, WEBSITE.com. And we have training programs. We have a Getting Started program, which is people who are new to the industry. We've got a customer acquisition program for people who are just focused on the idea of getting customers now. We've got a program called Top Secrets of Multi-Million-Dollar Producers for those who are maybe in the $500,000 to $600,000 range who are looking to get to the next level. We've got our Smart EQP program. We literally have programs and products at every level designed to help people to really get to where they're looking to be in the industry.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, so I'd like to thank everyone out there for being patient with us and attending the webinar. And David, of course, on your end, thank you so much for participating. I know that your words are inspiring and encouraging. So again, thank you, David. Thank you, all attendees, and we'll be sending out the webinar recording and slides for everyone as well.
Awesome, Philip. I just want to conclude with one final thought. John Ruskin said there's scarcely anything in the world that some man cannot make a little worse and sell a little more cheaply, but the person who buys on price alone is this man's lawful prey. When we focus on the 3 critical factors we need to succeed, and when we focus on functioning at the higher levels of the 5 levels of promotional product sales, it's very difficult for people to beat us.
Very good. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.